The Row has operated on a single premise for nearly 2 decades. True luxury doesn't announce itself. There are no logos, no advertisements, and no celebrity endorsements, despite being founded by 2 incredibly famous people. And for a brand that's known for quiet luxury, their recent sample sale in October was the loudest thing that they have ever done. I'm Sammi Cohen, and this is Social Currency, a podcast that unpacks the stories that are shaping business, culture, and the intersection of the two. Seemingly half of the media coverage on the Row talks about how they do things differently. Their fashion shows are held in complete silence with phones banned at the door. They have an Instagram feed that looks a lot more like a contemporary art gallery than an actual fashion brand. This is really a brand that turned fashion restraint into a billion-dollar business. And something strange started happening on a Tuesday in October before the Row's annual sample sale. People started camping out overnight in tents. Professional line sitters charged $50 an hour to camp out overnight. Wait times stretched to 9 hours long, and TikTok exploded with haul videos documenting 5-figure shopping sprees. All of this hype is over a brand that operates at a price point that is ridiculously expensive for most Americans. A simple cotton t-shirt costs $520, and cashmere coats can go up to $12,000. All of this has revealed something fascinating about modern luxury. A brand that built its entire identity on being quiet and minimalistic just created one of fashion's most visible spectacles. So let's set the scene with what the Row actually represents and where it's come from. The company was founded in 2006 by Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen, and it started with an impossibly simple premise: one perfect white t-shirt. The sisters had spent their lives under media scrutiny. They were child stars turned tabloid fixtures. When they launched the Row, they did what most PR people would highly recommend against. They completely disappeared and they went under the radar. This is literally the furthest departure from what we see today when a celebrity launches any type of product. Celebrities now will line up for the podcast circuit and they'll do as many interviews as possible to be as relevant as possible to their audience. The brand name of the Row didn't even reference them, and they made it a point to not be anywhere on the brand's website. The brand actually points to Savile Row, London's legendary tailoring street, positioning this as serious fashion, not celebrity merch. And their early collections were studies in restraint. Meticulously tailored coats in muted neutrals, thick, luxurious knits, crisp Japanese denim. It was just exceptional clothing that was so quietly flawless that you really had to look twice to appreciate it. The approach to their shows became pretty legendary. Most recently, their 2025 Paris presentation had no social media and phones were completely banned. They also followed a similar approach last year. Guests sat in absolute silence watching models glide across the room. There was no music, no elaborate backdrop, just pure focus, forcing viewers to truly see the clothes stripped of all distraction. Their press kits arrived without detailed descriptions, just carefully selected images and a note urging people to just observe. And for the social media that they do have, their Instagram feed looks more like a curated art gallery than a fashion brand. There's lots of blurry photographs, abstract paintings, folds of fabric without captions. They aren't trying to drive sales, and it's almost as if they're saying, we don't need to try to sell you anything because we're better than that. And so by the early 2010s, without all of the celebrity hype that we see today when celebrities launch brands, the Row had become one of America's most respected fashion labels. Editors, stylists, and buyers who noticed every stitch were paying attention to the Row. This wasn't minimalism designed for Instagram. It was restraint as a discipline. And it was a rejection of so much of the noise in fashion. Fashion insiders called this reverse psychology in the fashion world. The less that the Row said, the more people wanted it. And according to luxury consultant Robert Burke, it's about creating objects of genuine desire in an era when everything feels disposable and accessible. However, restraint doesn't pay the bills, and here's where the Row's pricing strategy gets interesting. They didn't just charge premium prices, they charge luxury prices, aligned with traditional luxury houses in the world, and sometimes their prices are even higher. There are sweaters for close to $2,000, sneakers and leather bags for over $5,000. And at the center of their universe sits their Margot bag. This is a soft, structured tote with 0 logos that has somehow become fashion's quietest status symbol. It retails anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000, and it always sells out right away. Many shoppers started calling it the next Birkin. But here's the paradox. Those astronomical prices made the discount from their sample sale event seem kind of tempting. When that $3,000 blazer drops to $750, or when the $13,000 coat becomes $3,000, suddenly that 8-hour wait kind of makes sense or feels less insane. It somehow feels like an investment strategy. And I believe that the Row is one of the few brands in luxury that is less impacted by dupes. Because the Row products are so painstakingly simple and focused on the materials, the allure of the dupe being noticeable and easily identifiable as the real item that it's emulating, this is just harder to pull off with products from the Row. And so the famous sample sale that I'm mentioning ran from October 23rd to 26th at Metropolitan Pavilion in Manhattan. And what unfolded was almost comic given the Row's carefully cultivated image. The first day was pandemonium. Some people waited 26 hours before the doors even opened, with wait times around 9 hours throughout the day. By day 2, things had calmed down somewhat. And the logistics were strict. Coats and bags were checked at the door, phone cameras were taped over, credit cards only, and all sales were final. And like any hard to get into sample sale, the atmosphere was very intense. There were line sitting services like same old line dudes that dispatched overnight to wait online for people. And the CEO of that company explained that their typical customers for this type of reservation system are usually busy moms who don't want to have to choose between a sample sale and their kids. At $50 an hour, a 6-hour line hold costs around $300 just for the privilege of spending thousands more inside. And the TikTok documentation of this whole sample sale was relentless and very entertaining. One shopper posted, "I saved over $20,000. I'm not going to financially recover from that for a while, but I have no regrets." Another person said, "I swear I blacked out. Let's find out what came home with me because I truly don't know." The irony of all of this was palpable. All of this documentation of the sample sale is so at odds with the brand's ethos and purposeful silence. And there was also a little bit of drama surrounding the Row that happened around the same time as the sample sale. One of the Row's biggest organic supporters publicly broke up with them. Neelam Ahooja is a content creator who had spent her entire online career singing the Row's praises, styling pieces from her collection, breaking down products on her YouTube, and she even posted a 10-minute video focused exclusively on the Margot's bag handle. The Row Collector was literally the first line of her Instagram bio, but now she's changed it to 90s minimalism with an edge. Neelam decided to publish this open letter on her Substack titled "We Need to Break Up." Among her claims was that the Row actually killed a Wall Street Journal story about her love for the brand. They also scolded her for posting about the sample sale and chastised her for posting affiliate links to wholesalers. And what's even more interesting to me about this is that she never even had a formal paid partnership with the Row. She was just promoting them purely out of genuine love. And in her open letter, she writes about how frustrated she is that the Row is turning against her for simply drawing attention to the fact that she loves them. To be honest, this is some of the strangest behavior from a brand that I have ever heard, if that is in fact true. And I wonder why they're so allergic to media and press if they're still willing to hold a sample sale that they know will generate thousands of posts in organic media attention. And if they're willing to go after a single influencer and try to encourage her to stop posting about them, I genuinely wonder if they are going to even want to continue to do the sample sales in the future. So we'll have to wait and see about that one. Not so long ago, I think this would have been unthinkable for an influencer publicly criticizing a luxury brand whose products form the foundation of her entire online identity. But something fundamental has shifted in the power dynamic between creators and brands now. The Row's response to Neelam's letter was non-existent. There was literally no comment, which honestly tracks perfectly with the brand philosophy, except this time the silence looks less like mystique and more like they simply have no good answer, or maybe even worse, they just don't care. And As the Business of Fashion put it, it's cheaper and more effective to earn an influencer's endorsement than to try to pay or bully them into saying nice things. Creators can walk away from the relationship even when it goes back a decade. If the 300 plus overwhelmingly positive comments under her open letter are any indication, then they may even be rewarded for it. The sample sale chaos and the influencer rebellion are just two of the most visible examples of the Rose image colliding with commercial reality. Because here's what's happening behind the scenes. The Row is growing very quickly. Reports estimate 20 to 30% annual growth. And the brand's valuation hit approximately $1 billion in 2024, with minority stakes acquired by the family behind Chanel and the family behind L'Oreal through their family offices. And for a brand that doesn't advertise or expand aggressively, that number is staggering. Billion-dollar growth demands visibility. Stockists have multiplied, everyone from Net-a-Porter to My Teresa, and we're starting to just see the Rose items show up a lot more now. What began as a low-profile label is now a global entity with serious investor expectations. Physical expansion is accelerating, and their menswear line is growing, and earlier this year, they actually launched their first homewares collection, filled with the same minimalistic but exceptionally crafted items that you'd expect from them, but now they're for your home. And here's where everything circles back to that chaotic sample sale and even that influencer breakup. Both moments reveal that there's that same fundamental tension. The Row built its empire on total control, controlling the narrative, controlling the distribution, and controlling who gets access and when. But billion-dollar businesses with global investors don't get to operate in the shadows anymore. You can't expand across business lines as one of the most talked about companies in luxury and fashion while still maintaining this illusion of exclusivity. And you can't generate several $1 million in 4 days from a sample sale and expect it to remain a quiet underground event. The very success the Row achieved through Mystique now serves as a point of tension for the brand. So what's the current state of affairs for the Row? The Row still very much holds real power, and their restraint still reads as rare in a world of noise. They've created clothes that feel both of the moment and completely timeless. But as they enter this new chapter, more global, more lucrative, more documented, the world is watching. And to be utterly clear, I still think that the Row is in their early innings of creating their luxury empire. The demand shows that, and I think the Row will continue to drive significant revenue and growth. But the real question isn't whether the Row will be successful commercially, it's whether they can be successful while staying the Row, because that is what made them successful in the first place. And with that, that is a wrap on today's episode. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments on all things the Row, so please let me know your thoughts. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Social Currency. I've been wanting to launch this show for so long. I can't tell you how excited I am to do this and how thrilled I am that you're actually here listening. It means the world to me. If you liked what you heard today, please rate and review the podcast because it massively helps to support the work I do to bring the show to life. And if you want to keep up with the hottest business lore in real time, follow me on Instagram at Sammi Cohen Talks and subscribe to my newsletter, Social Currency, which is linked in the show notes. Social Currency is a production of Social Currency Media and Money News Network. The podcast is hosted and executive produced by me, Sammi Cohen. Social Currency is produced by the Money News Network team. See you next time.